So, a lot of talking about environment variables and keys and so on. Let's now build our app for production. And what does this actually mean? Well, for the React app, for the front end, you have to keep in mind that this will run entirely in the browsers of your users. Here it is running locally on localhost 3000 during development, and everything we do here is of course controlled by a script which in the end is downloaded. When we reload this page here and we go to the network tab, we see there are a bunch of HTTP requests, and for example this bundle.js file and this zero chunk.js file, this is in the end our React code which is getting downloaded from the backend. So all the React code runs in the browser and everyone there can see it. You can access it through the Sources tab, through the Network tab if you inspect the responses of the requests, and so on. So this is not hidden code. So since this does run directly in the browsers of our visitors, we have two important things to keep in mind. For one, we of course, as I mentioned multiple times, need to ensure that we have no confidential data in there. Our API key here is fine, but we might consider locking it down as I showed it to you in the last lecture. The second important thing to keep in mind, of course, is that we want to make this code as small as possible, because having smaller code simply means that our users have to download less, and hence the application starts up quicker, so we simply provide a better user experience. Now for that, we have a convenient script. npm run build, if you execute this, will build your application. And whilst during development your code is not optimized, it has a lot of debugging, supporting code in it, when you run npm run build, everything which is not necessary will be stripped out, function and variable names will be shortened, and you will get as small of a code bundle as possible. So let's run npm run build here in the front end, and let's wait for this process to finish. Now once this did finish, with this message here, you also get some metrics about the sizes of the different bundles it produced, and you will find a build folder, a brand new build folder, which contains all the files you would in the end deploy to a backend. These are in the end the files that you want to push to a server. Now, we're not entirely there yet though. For one, we didn't swap our variables here for the values we want to use in production. So that's not great. We of course want to do that, right? Otherwise we have a problem here. The second problem we have is we didn't really prepare our app entirely for production. In the public folder in the index.html file, you can revisit some settings there. For example, set a different description of your web page as it will appear on Google search, for example. Check all these settings in general. Make sure if you want to use that fav icon or if you want to provide your own one. You can also delete this manifest.json import file here and also the manifest.json file if you want to. If you're building a progressive web app, you might need that. Otherwise, it's up to you if you want to add this or not. So once this is done, the rest of this file should be fine. Let's focus on the environment variables. To provide different values for this production build, so for building the files which we want to move to a server, we copy this file and name it .env.production. Our React build workflow here will automatically pick up this file when we build for production with npm run build, and we'll use the values set up in there instead of these values. So now we can provide different values here. And for example, in the case of the Google API key, we could use the second key here, which is our production ready API key, let's say, and swap our development one for this one. So now we're using that. Now for the URLs, we don't know yet where exactly our backend will be served, right? Because we haven't deployed the backend to any server yet. So we'll leave them like this for the moment, but I will revisit this later once we deployed the backend. Now one last thing you might want to consider for optimizing your front end for production is code splitting. So let me come back to that in the next lecture.